Yes. Do you guys know any people from the Renaissance?
Henry the Third, wasn't it?
Not necessarily, but we'll get to some prominent figures.
Wait, what's my weapon? No, that was the French Revolution.
So, have anybody ever heard of? I'll give you one name because I know everybody heard. How about this? By show of hands, if you heard of the Renaissance, raise your hand.
What?
If you heard of the Renaissance time period before, raise your hand. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now watch this. If you guys ever heard of Shakespeare before, raise your hand. Hold on. So now we went from 6 to 10. Okay. So if you guys have heard of the Mona Lisa before, raise your hand. Okay. So we're getting there. So we're adding more hands now. Okay. So you guys heard of the Mona Lisa? Do anybody know who painted the Mona Lisa?
Leonardo something.
Leonardo. So anybody?
Leonardo da Vinci. Yeah.
So, Leonardo da Vinci, right? So he's also from that time period. What about the Last Supper, the picture that I showed you guys earlier this year when we talked about Christianity?
Picasso, right?
Picasso, no, that's Leonardo too. But you guys have seen the Last Supper before, right? So you guys have been exposed to many different people, right? From the actual time period. And you guys have probably heard about some of these people. So a lot of this information that we're going to present, you guys are going to be like, oh, I remember that. I remember that. So the bell ringer that we did today, we seen the famous statue, right? The statue was called David, right? Who was the dude who did the sculpture? Michelangelo. So Michelangelo, Leonardo, right? So
They're all named on the time period.
Ninja Turtles. Ah. So we got Michelangelo, we got Leonardo. So who else?
Raphael.
Raphael. Oh, another painter from the time period. Anybody else you missing?
Leonardo.
Mikey. We already got Mikey.
Leonardo,
I
right?
think start with a D, maybe.
Donatello.
Donatello. So that's good. You guys own your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff, right? So, all right. So these are famous painters from the time period, right? You guys have a worksheet in front of you that I want you guys to take a look at right now. You guys have a worksheet in front of you that I want you to take a look at right now. So the worksheet pretty much states, it says an introduction. We're gonna start doing. You good?
Trying to help you with something.
Me?
No, him.
No, him? All right. Don't worry about that right now. So, introduction, right? So the word Renaissance, follow along me, we're at the top. The word Renaissance means rebirth. Rebirth is when something is reborn. It used to exist, and now it's back. So something used to exist, and now it's back. Like some Jordan, something retro. It used to happen a long time ago, now they're coming back out, right? In the European Renaissance, the thing that was reborn was cultural advancement, similar to the ancient Greeks in Rome, like math, science, medicine, art, literature, philosophy, and architecture. But why was Europe not advancing before this time? So, if you look at on your sheet of paper, you should have a timeline that looks similar to this. All right? So it talks about some of the different time periods that we actually talked about. So we talked about the Classic Age already. That was when we talked about the Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire, right? So we talked about the Middle Ages, feudalism. We did the whole pyramid. Who's at the top of the pyramid?
King.
Kings.
No,
Priests. Kings sounds good. Who's above the pyramid?
God.
Church, right? Church, the God's religion. Who's at the bottom of the pyramid? Peasants, right? So we had the king at the top, peasants. So that was this whole feudalism, mannerism. There's only one king, protect the king. Remember we talked about chess and checkers, right? So now we're moving on to a new time frame. So right after that, we started talking about this Renaissance time period that we're actually in right now, right? So we got a worksheet that we're actually gonna go through. I'm gonna help you with the all right, so we're actually gonna pair up in 3 for this activity, right? So for the first thing that I want you guys to actually go ahead and do, because somebody's already made it to my attention, make sure you have a first sheet that looks similar to mine. You have a sheet that says chapter 1, a sheet that says chapter 2, and a backside sheet that says chapter 3. Good. Maybe out of order. My helper who put them together informed me that some of them are out of order. All right, so when you guys actually look at this list, you have a vocabulary list that we're actually going to use chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3 to work on. We have a vocabulary list, right? It's going to introduce some of the terms that we'll later learn about this unit, right? So the first vocabulary, can somebody give me the first vocabulary? Second vocabulary. Catholic Church, Byzantine Empire, Islamic Golden Age, Pope Urban, Crusades, Jerusalem, so on and so on. Everybody see this middle chart where it says vocabulary, right? So, next to the vocabulary, it has numbers. What do you think that number means? How many chapters are there?
3.
3. So what do you think, let's say if
It's
I...
not chapter.
So it's telling you the particular chapter that it's in, right? So let's do the first one together because the instructions are simply this. So vocabulary, while reading, because we're gonna read the chapters, while reading, I want you to define these words whenever you see them, right? So whenever you see one of these words show up, you're gonna define it, right? So the first word we're gonna look for is fall of Rome. It's in the first chapter, it's the first thing on our list. Naturally, that's what we're gonna look for, right? So when we look here, this is your first chapter. Can somebody help point out fall of Rome for me? No, point it out for me.
The fall of Rome in the 14th
So, in the second sentence, it has what's called the fall of Rome, right? And then on my vocabulary chart, I have the fall of Rome. So the instructions are simply this. While reading, define these words whenever you see them up, right? So whenever you see it show up. So, it says in the first, I see it show up. Okay, now I'm about to learn about the fall of Rome. I'm about to define it. So, it says from the classical age to the Middle Ages. So we're going from the classical ages to the Middle Ages on our timeline, right? So, it says, when the Goths invaded Rome in the 400s, they destroyed cities, school, libraries, and government buildings. Here's that key word. The fall of Rome in the 400s meant that most Western Europeans could not learn to read, write, and there was no central government protecting merchants, building roads, or enforcing laws, so trade declined. Okay? So with that in mind, so we've seen the fall of Rome, correct? Right? Now that we've seen the fall of Rome, right? Let's isolate it. We have the fall of Rome. Right behind it, it says in the 400s, this meant that most Western Europeans could not learn to read and write, and there was no central government protecting merchants, building roads, or enforcing laws, so trade declined. So this kind of talked about why Rome fell, right? So can somebody help me, right? Because you don't got a lot of space in that bullet point, right? But you want to take what's essential out of that, right? Can somebody help me decrease this enough, give me just the essential that I can put inside this bullet point right here for number 1, where it says fall of Rome?
The fall of Rome.
Speak up a little bit, check just a little bit for me.
The fall of Rome could not learn, read, or write.
Who cannot learn?
The West Eastern.
So the Western Europeans, they could not read and write. That was due to the fall of Rome, right? Also, one more thing that's in there that's very important. Trade decline, one more piece in there.
No central government.
So no centralized government, right? So those are the 3 pieces that you can put here, right? So your paper, once you guys actually go through it, should look like this. So we already got it, we found out what it means, so it's fall of Rome, right? I put one up here for us. So Western Europeans could not learn to read and write. There was no central government, which resulted in decline in trade. You guys did it much better than me. I feel like that's still too wordy, right? So Western Europeans could not learn to read and write. No centralized government. And then again, this resulted in a decline in trade. So everybody should be writing in number 1 right now. Join that group. You stay right there. I'll come work with you. Once you get finished, join this group right here. Once you get finished, join that group right there. Not you. Once you get finished, you're just gonna join that group. Yes. And it's like, once I count. So it's come see me later. All right, so, right, we're gonna do a quick count off. We're gonna part it in groups of 3s. You guys are gonna do this assignment in groups of 3s. How we're actually gonna do that? It's gonna be similar to like a little carousel type thing activity. So, I'm gonna count off. Right? There's 3 people at a desk, so we're counting off 1, 2, 3. So we'll start on this side. Back table.
Two.
Pat? Gotcha.